Direct News TV. November 6, 2023. Israel-Hamas War Live Updates, Gaza Hospital on brink of shutting down. The death toll in Gaza hit a grim milestone, with more than 10,000 people killed, including 4,104 children and 2,641 women, since October 7, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children and reiterated his call for a ceasefire. Guterres also said the Rafah crossing with Egypt was not sufficient to get much-needed aid into the Palestinian enclave. The Palestine Red Crescent warned fuel will run out in 48 hours at Al-Quds Hospital, and officials at Al-Adha Hospital said it is facing a looming shutdown. Meanwhile, Israel has denied it was responsible for a strike on Al-Shifa Hospital's solar panel system. The UAE has said it will build a large-scale field hospital in Gaza, although it did not elaborate on any agreements reached on that plan. 4 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in a raid in the occupied West Bank city of Tulkarem. Fighting has continued along the Israel-Lebanon border a day after 4 civilians were killed in an Israeli strike on southern Lebanon. The U.S. has said bases housing its personnel in Iraq and Syria have been attacked 38 times since October 17. Speaking to foreign ambassadors, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sought to frame the war in Gaza as a global battle against an axis of terror led by Iran. South Africa joined the list of countries that have recalled their ambassadors from Israel in light of their actions in Gaza. It's been revealed that U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has been in touch with the United Arab Emirates. This is the first time she's entered the diplomatic process. The readout of her conversation with those leaders once again focuses on humanitarian needs, but also very importantly, the fact that civilian life has got to be protected. The increase in civilian death and injury in Gaza is creating the beginning of major political problems for the Biden administration in the U.S. Clearly, in these days, they have been trying to focus on firstly the humanitarian aspect of what is happening to those civilians and secondly, their ongoing protection. So, this is a very important element of this administration's strategy in regards to Gaza and Israel's role. Biden is being very careful to point out in his calls with Netanyahu that the civilians in Gaza, their protection, is the duty of Israel. In Tunisia, pro-Palestinian fervor used to push for anti-NGO law. The war on Gaza has granted Tunisia a rare moment of political unity, driving public appetite for new legislation that risks fracturing civil society groups and potentially isolating the country on the international stage. Since his July 2021 power grab, decried by the opposition as a coup, President Kais Saied has faced simmering discontent from supporters of the former parliament and a powerful trade union, the Union Générale Tunisienne du Travail, or Tunisian General Labor Union. For much of Tunisia's predominantly young and progressive civil society groups, Said's presidency has provided a focal point of dissent, but many are divided between resentment of his authoritarian rule and what most see as an absence of any alternative. However, Israel's relentless bombing of the Gaza Strip after the October 7 surprise attack by Hamas has tugged at deep historical threads within Tunisia, drawing society together in a way that nothing else has, including the 2011 revolution. Let that sink in. UN expert comments on soaring Gaza death toll. Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories, has commented on the more than 10,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7. That is 1 in every 200 people, in Gaza alone, she said. In 1 month. Let that sink in. Another Palestinian dies while in detention in Ofra prison. Another Palestinian from Gaza has died while in detention in Israel's Ofra prison in the occupied West Bank. Majid Ahmed Zakul, 32, was among a group of Palestinian workers in Israel who were detained without charge by Israel in a sweep after the October 7 Hamas attack, a joint statement from the Palestinian Prisoners Society, PPS, and the Commission of Detainees Affairs, CDA, said. The statement accused Israeli authorities of concealing the circumstances behind the death of Zakul, who moved from Gaza to the occupied West Bank 3 years ago and was suffering from cancer. It also accused Israeli authorities of subjecting Palestinian detainees to torture and abuse, especially workers from Gaza, who were detained after October 7. Zakul was the 240th Palestinian to die while in detention since 1967, the PPS and CDA said. U.S. Muslim advocacy group urges Biden to pressure Israel to release Ahed Tamimi. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, called on Washington to pressure the Israeli government to release the prominent 22-year-old Palestinian activist. Tamimi was arrested overnight on Monday and her father, Bassem, also was detained last week as part of Israel's wide-reaching arrest campaign in the occupied West Bank since the war in Gaza began. If prominent Palestinian figures like Ahed Tamimi and her father are not safe from the Israeli government's escalating attacks in the West Bank, no Palestinian is safe, CAIR's deputy director, Edward Ahmed Mitchell, said in a statement. Benjamin Netanyahu's openly racist, far-right ministers are completely out of control. The Biden administration must call for the immediate release of Ahed Tamimi and demand an end to the Israeli government's escalating attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank. Palestinians in Gaza asked to choose between human cleansing and genocide, PRCS head, Dr. Yunus al-Khatib appealed to the international community in a video posted on X. The Palestine Red Crescent president said that Gaza is facing a catastrophic situation. Gaza has been asked to choose between human cleansing and genocide, either to leave or to die, he said. Update from our correspondent in Gaza. We've just received an update from our correspondent Tariq Abu Azam, reporting from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. He says the fighting between Israeli forces and Palestinian fighters has intensified over the past hour in the territory, particularly in the coastal areas of Zuwaydah and the Al-Nusayrat refugee camp. We are talking about the coastal line of both towns and the coastline of the Gaza Strip, as Israel is trying to make a complete split between governorates, Abu Azam said. Ceasefire remains sticking point as Security Council meets for sixth time. This is the sixth meeting that the UN Security Council has had since the October 7 attacks. They are working on their fifth resolution to deal with the situation in Gaza. They are getting a briefing from the humanitarian chief and the Middle East coordinator for the UN, who have all called for an immediate ceasefire and the release of captives held in Gaza. But the term ceasefire is still controversial and a sticking point for the Security Council as they attempt to put into words their take on the situation. The U.S. is against a blanket ceasefire in Gaza, saying this will give Hamas a chance to regroup and attack Israel. However, the U.S. has changed its language somewhat. It talks about the need for humanitarian pauses to get aid in for civilians in Gaza, though it initially vetoed a resolution that called for a humanitarian pause. Gaza's Al-Adha hospital faces shutdown due to fuel shortage, Director Ahmed Mahana, the director of Al-Adha hospital, has warned that the facility could completely shut down by Wednesday night due to the fuel shortage. We are doing the impossible to continue working in the hospital, but we have no choice after the fuel runs out, Mahana told Al Jazeera. Al-Adha is one of the largest medical facilities in Gaza. We have 60 patients residing in the hospital, some of whom are in serious condition and others in moderate condition, he said, adding that the medical team has not left for 30 days due to the number of people needing medical attention. Mahana said 80% of the patients in the hospital were women and children. More from Palestinian UN envoy. In an interview with Al Jazeera, Mansour described the U.S. as the elephant in the Security Council, which has so far failed to pass a resolution on the situation in Gaza. It is the last hurdle before us and before the international community, the UN envoy said, stressing that the U.S., which holds veto power on the Security Council, can push Israel to stop these crimes that are taking place in Gaza. It is difficult, but still we are staying the course, and we are compounding our efforts and pressure, said Mansour, including a push to have the International Criminal Court investigate. He added that countries can also take steps at the national level to pressure Israel. Killing children and killing a large number of civilians and destroying 50% of the buildings in the Gaza Strip, and starving, in an act of collective punishment, an entire population, destroying hospitals, are all crimes against humanity, he said. Whoever commits these crimes should face accountability and face the punishment that they deserve for committing such crimes. 10,000 dead in Gaza, international calls for ceasefire grow. The tragic death toll in Gaza has intensified calls for a ceasefire from around the world. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has reiterated his demand for a ceasefire, in the face of Israeli criticism. The unfolding catastrophe makes the need for a humanitarian ceasefire more urgent with every passing hour, Guterres said today. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.